Okay, so let's make an afterthought button loop. It is a buttonhole, but it's a loop that we are making here. So what you need is a crochet hook. This is a US size 00. It's about the same size as a US size 3 needle, at least on my little needle gauge, and it is the only crochet hook that I own, so you might need to adjust if you don't have this exact size. Now I already have 4 button loops here, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I have 5 buttons. And just here's a quick, easy way to gauge where to put these. Because I did 5 buttons, I actually didn't measure. I knew that I wanted to put a button on each end, and then a third one could go halfway between these last two buttons, so boom, right there. And then a button between these two right here, so same with my buttonholes, like that. And this last one will be halfway between these two buttons, these 2 button loops. So I want to put my buttonhole, my button loop right there. Now to do that, I actually cut a piece of yarn. This is the main color, the teal color, and it's less than a yard. It's about, I don't know, it's about 20 inches or so, let's say. And that's about all you need. It's a little bit more, so you want to definitely give yourself a little slack there. All right, so with the right side of my work facing, I want to put my buttonhole right there. I am going to insert, you're going to insert your crochet hook into the running strand in between the last 2 stitches. So you see how there's a running strand right there? Let me show you. If you pull these open like this, and I'll zoom in for you, there are running strands between those stitches. You could pick one of those. Now I want to measure this again and say, okay, I want to go right in here. Oops. And pick up my running strand. Pull a loop through with the crochet hook. Like that. So you're still on the right side of your work here. And with, let's see, I want a slightly longer tail because I'm going to hook or chain some stitches with this. And I'm going to chain 9 times because that's the size that is working for my buttons. I believe these buttons are 20 millimeter buttons. And that's how many stitches, 1, 2, then I need to go around my button. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, oops, and 9. Now I wasn't pulling super tight, and you know, there's only so tightly you can do this. I actually want to have a little bit of stretch here because this has to stretch over your button. And here's how I decided what would work for my size button here. I want something that's just slightly less than twice the diameter of my button. So I figured that's it for eyeballing it right there. Okay, so how do I finish this off? Well, I got to hook this back in here. And I'm going to go through the running strand again, but I'm going to pick the next running strand down. I don't want to go back into the same hole, or my loop could just go right through. So I'm going to pick out the next running strand, kind of like how you would pick up a running strand for a stitch. And now I'm going to pull a loop with my working tail of yarn. And see how I have 2 stitches there, pretty much? I'm going to pull that first stitch. I think I split a stitch. I think I may have split the yarn here. Let's see if it pulls through. I'm going to pull it through my last one, like that, and then pull. Yep, I did split a stitch. I split a stitch, and so things are sticking. So let's try this again. See, it happens to everybody. Aha, see, you can see where I split that. I hate when I do that. So I'm going to put this back in here. So let's pretend I just finished chaining my 9 stitches. I'm going to go back into this now very stretched out running strand, pull that back into place, not split the yarn this time. There we go. pull a stitch through that running strand. Now I have 2 stitches there, and I'm going to pull, make this a little looser so that I can pull it through right there. Now I don't even need this anymore, I'll just keep pulling it. There we go. Now before you say, whoa, Mary, this is not working, because now you have your ends of yarn sticking out on your right side and you don't want that. Don't worry, we're gonna fix that. What I wanna do first though is, before we pull them through to the wrong side of our work, tie a little knot. I am not a huge fan of knots in knitting. There we go, let's do 2 slip knots there. But I really want this to stay secure. Now, I'll pull everything through, pull my 2 ends through to the wrong side of the work. You can do it one at a time if that's easier for you, like 1 and then 2. See, now they're on the wrong side right here. You can pull it a little snug if you like. And now you got to weave that in. Now, if you like, you could secure it even more by, pulling it through back of a stitch a couple times. Let's do that one more time. I'm trying to make sure you can see this through the camera. Pull it through there and then make basically another slip knot like that. Just kind of weaves it in a little more tightly. But I do like to keep my ends in the edge when I'm weaving them in, especially on a piece like this, although this is going to be at the back of my neck, isn't it? I cannot wait to show you how to wear this wonderful piece. So stick around and I'll show you how it's constructed and how it's buttoned. Just weaving in some ends there. I must have left the camera for a moment, but you saw the important part. And I'll be right back to show you how to button this up and how to wear it. Okay, now that the buttonholes and the buttons are all on this wonderful cowl, I wanted to show you a little bit about how it's constructed. So for example, your neck is going to be up here. We're going to button this so that this is the neck opening here. But notice that it's wider down here than it is up at the neck. It narrows towards the neck. I really like that because what it does is give you a little less bulk around your neck, a little less flopping around there. And so I think it's easier to wear if it tapers a little bit. That was quite an engineering feat, and it's one of the reasons I am just so excited about this. You've probably seen this construction before. It's a popular construction, but I actually knit it upside down. You're gonna knit it upside down. And what you do is you cast on way down here, just a couple stitches, and you knit it this way. The whole thing is knit flat, basically on the bias. But to make it taper to the neck, and again, the neck opening is going to be right here, you have to do some really funky things. So I basically break this cowl down into 3 parts. The first part being casting on here and knitting this oblique triangle. Actually, yeah, it is oblique. This edge is pretty typical for a triangular shawl where you are increasing at the rate of just 1 stitch every right side row. But over here, you're increasing 2 stitches every right side row. So you're doing a knit front, back, front every right side row all along this edge until basically this edge is tall enough for how much I want to go over your head. Once it gets to here, you stop increasing at this edge and You're just working like an I-cord edge with no increases the whole way, you know, whole way to the end, right there. All right, meanwhile, along this edge over here, let me move this, my camera rocked. This whole thing rocked. You are still increasing one stitch, and then with having a little garter edge here, every right side row, until this is wide enough to fit around your head, to pull over your head. So basically you've got this piece from way over here that's this long to here. You're going to keep this edge over here the same, but over here you start decreasing. And let me tell you, I really had to play with the rate of decrease to get this edge to mirror the one that's over here. Make it just about the same length. So you're going to be decreasing at kind of a funky rate while you're working the wonderful stitch patterns until this edge matches this edge down here. And then you basically bind off. If you have enough yarn, I have this nice little bobbly edge for you here, and you should have enough yarn for your contrasting colorway. But if for some reason your gauge is a little off in places and you're worried you're going to run out, you could just do plain garter stitch in your main color there. But I am so excited about this. So let's button this up and I'll show you about wearing it. To button it, again, you are going to knit it upside down. There we go. But to button it, you have to put the wrong side up. So wrong side facing with the neck edge, that little garter edge up at the top. Pull this over here and pull this over here. All right. So now we'll just button this on up. And this is kind of hard to do with the camera right in front of your face, between you and your work. There we go, there's one button. You are watching a video of someone buttoning buttons. Maybe it's a bit of an ASMR thing. There we go, 3. Got these button loops just the right size. I have to stretch them just a little bit to get my button through, and that's a nice thing. Here we go. Ta-da! Very excited about this. So it looks like this long, I don't know, looks like a very wide, large necktie. There we go. So let me show you how I like to wear it. And it's a chilly fall day here in New England, and so I thought it would be a really great time to tell you a little bit about my new cowl. This is called the Killer Queen Cowl. Yeah, I love Queen. We're putting the lyrical in lyrical knits here. And it's a very generous cowl. The way I'm wearing it now, I don't have a lot of shoulder coverage, so I do want to show you a little thing here too. So first up, it's asymmetrical, it's knit on the bias. It's got some really cool stitch patterns here that I think look like champagne bubbles. And this little V here looks kind of like champagne flutes. So I'm calling it the Killer Queen Cowl because she keeps Moe and Shandon in a pretty cabinet. You've probably seen this shape before. I've seen lots of designers use this shape as well. Only most of them have it sewn shut, so I've chosen to button mine shut. Also, I designed it so that it tapers a little bit at the neck. It doesn't come straight up like this, it actually tapers in, so it gives you a little less around the neck, so you could but you can still pull it over your head. And the reason I buttoned it, although you certainly have the option to sew it, the reason I buttoned it is to show you this. I have buttoned it fully here. And, you know, a good reason to put buttons instead of sewing it is that buttons are pretty. They're really just pretty. But also, look what happens when I unbutton the last 2 buttons and just kind of keep those top buttons here. I get a different fit And look, I get shoulder coverage this way, and then there's less bunching around the neck. And that is one of the things that I really, really love about this cowl. That, and does it match this dress like perfectly or what? This is incredible. Even the tree matches. Wow, it's magic. But see, I get more shoulder coverage this way. Now, I have very broad shoulders. So I like to have a cowl open up. And I think it just looks fabulous over a lighter dress or over a coat like this. And just to show you what it looks like in the back, see, you can still see the buttons there. Now, I mean, this dress is very low backed, so I'm not getting coverage there. But you can enjoy your buttons that way and just keep a little bit warm. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's not a shawl, it's not a poncho, it's just a very generously sized cowl that is on the bias, engineered to kind of tilt in towards the neck. And also, if you button it instead of sewing it shut, you have a little more flexibility for whether or not you want shoulder coverage or not. If you don't want shoulder coverage, it's going to come up more like that. Anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy your knitting. Bye-bye.